stress is going to come. And I think that the pandemic was a really good example of the things that can just happen to us that we don't have a lot of control over. But what we can control and what we can build is our neurological resiliency to those factors. We can strengthen the brain and the nervous system to be more resilient no matter what life presents to us. So absolutely, this will be very empowering for your listeners, because it's just, you can feel so helpless, whether it's chronic illness, whether it's, lockdowns, whether it's trying different medications or not healing or not getting better from a chronic medical circumstance. Usually there's an underlying missing piece that hasn't been addressed in the brain and nervous system. And that's what we target in our program.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to Body Ecology Living. I think this podcast today is going to be incredibly important for you and all of us listening. We are living under stress like never before, and stress is one of the important topics we're going to be talking about, but so much more, including gut health, aging, whatever your interest is. We will be touching on it in this podcast. And my guest today is Carol Garner-Houston, and she's the founder and chief clinical officer of Brain Harmony, which is an award-winning, evidence-based, drug-free telehealth program that creates personalized at-home programs for children, for adults, basically for everybody. I don't know about your pets, but I'll ask Carol about that.
Well, I can share with you some about our pets as well.
Oh, good. Cool. That's really cool. Okay. So she's had 3 decades of clinical experience working with over 4,000 families. Lots of them have big problems like autism and so on, ADHD. And she speaks all over at functional medicine conferences and top wellness podcasts like this one. And it's just going to be a really, really valuable conversation today. So, Carol, welcome.
Thank you so much for having me, Donna. I'm so excited to connect with you and your listeners and provide some additional options for healing, especially now. So thank you so much.
Well, Carol, I've always felt very strongly and said this often that when people come to me because they want a consultation and I'm listening to what's wrong with them, one of the things I'm always listening for is, what kind of stress are they dealing with? Are they in a bad relationship? Are they worried about money? Do they have a long history of not finding any answers? And they don't even know if there is an answer. So are they going to have to live with these problems for the rest of their life? Mm-hmm. What about the long-term effect? Is this going to affect how long they live? There's so many reasons. You turn on the news, even if you don't want to turn on the news, it seems to be all over the place, and it's scary. As an older person, born in 1946, I remember a very, very different world than today, a world that had a lot more rights to it. So I wanted to talk about stress because I think people cannot get well no matter what they have wrong with them unless they deal with stress. Mm-hmm. So before we talk about your amazing tool, which is very, well studied and researched and proven to work effectively, can you just tell us a little bit about how you developed this tool? Like, I know it's a long journey for you, and you looked at so many different similar tools or similar therapies that you merge together to create Brain Harmony. That's what we're going to talk about, Brain Harmony.
Absolutely.
So just take it away.
Yes. So I started in the pediatric population, and I had the old-fashioned clinic model. That's, I came from the conventional medical model. That's where I was trained. So when I opened my own company, that's what I opened. Very insurance-based. We did a lot of beautiful work. Clients were coming to us. We would put our friends through different therapeutic protocols, movement patterns, in an attempt to organize the brain and nervous system. We did very good work. It was manual strategies and repetition, however, which means that it took a very long time to make those long-standing changes in the brain. And we didn't have a lot of time in the pediatric population. We're trying to catch up or develop skills that are lagging behind. So I brought my first neuroplastic tool into that clinic model. I put a listening program with some headphones on this child, and 60 minutes later, he walked out a different child. And I looked down at what I had in my hands and I said, I have never seen that before. And then ever since then, I've been putting headphones on everybody who will let me, as one of these major modalities to retrain, essentially override the state of the nervous system. And then we can reconnect and rewire function in the brain with the use of these different neuroplastic tools. Once those protocols were solidified, we started using multiple mediums. Whatever we were hearing that someone was finding shifts and gains with, whether it was neurofeedback, reflex integration, balance protocols, we tried all kinds of listening programs. Essentially, we have now have a very clear treatment plan on how to reorganize the brain and nervous systems with the use of these accelerant modalities to re-imprint and reset the state of the nervous system. And then we retrain it out of the dysfunctional features. So when you talk about stress and the additional layers that adds, additional layers of complexity for the individual to try and manage their everyday, the more levels of stress, the harder it is for us to feel safe, secure, and for us to be resilient with the different things that come up in our lives, to be able to be creative and have the executive function to organize, execute, and follow through. The more stress, the more layers of illness, the more disorganization in the brain, the farther the individual gets from feeling and obtaining their optimal health. And so we were serving clients actually in our telehealth program. We pulled all of the best protocols from that clinic model. And instead of people coming to us, we go ahead and ship those modalities to the client's home. We pair them with a licensed therapist who coaches the individual on how to reset their daily rhythms of their nervous system and brain with the application of these accelerants. We teach our friends how to use this every time that they're using one of our devices or protocols. You're overriding the dysfunctional state and saying, hey, nervous system, let's push that vagal brake and shift this way. And right now, with all of these additional layers of stress and complexity, some that we were never even able to conceive of just in the past few years, right? With this information exchange age, we're learning so much that's happening around us, and it's changing so quickly. Even just that change is stressful. So prioritizing neurological organization, restoring safety to the body, resetting that rhythm, it allows for the friends who are using our program or have achieved that higher level of brain harmony, they're able to manage through this with skill and ease. And it's really just quite a life-changing event. And what happens and what's established in the program essentially sticks and stays. So you'll see the improvements, you'll feel it. We'll be coaching you through to have compounding gains. But when you graduate, you continue with those neurological resiliency and strength that you build in the program, essentially because we are literally rewiring the brain and resetting how that nervous system responds. So we have so many options now. If a friend is stuck or they're feeling stuck or they are stuck because a situation or an illness has made them stuck, we can absolutely restore safety, awaken function, and master resiliency.
Well, you said a couple of things I want to make a comment on. First of all, I've had experience with autistic children,
Yes.
children that are autistic and their families. And I do want to say, without any doubt, is this: if you have a child that you're suspecting is not reaching his full potential, he is stressed out, he's having sleeping problems, bedwetting, just having trouble focusing, whatever, don't wait for a doctor to tell you, oh, I think he's on the spectrum, because the spectrum is mild to very severe. But my experience is that the sooner you address the issue, like a 3-year-old who's, or 2.5-year-old who's autistic, will heal and recover much, much
Yeah.
faster than a 10-year-old or certainly a teenager. So I care a lot about our kids, and I think a lot of them are in trouble today in this particular way. They're stressed out, they're not focused, they're not reaching their full potential. We need a generation of kids that are really going to help us solve these problems. So
Mhm.
if you're a parent listening to this, this is important to know, but it does so much more. Literally, no matter what age you are, it's going to help you. And maybe we should just list, Carol, some of the things that you address, like what benefits, what do you see healing and changing. I just want to also mention, I thought it was interesting when I first started talking to you, and you kept referring to friends instead of clients. That's really sweet. But the whole program is incredibly caring and sweet. So, what are the benefits that it addresses?
Absolutely. And thank you so much, Donna. We have wonderful relationships with the clients that we serve, whether it's children or adults. And it is a nice, friendly relationship. It's our pleasure to serve clients through the most difficult times. A lot of friends are struggling with that nervous system dysfunction. So we treat the underlying nervous system deficits. So we treat the anxiety, depression, for our friends with the little ones who are having developmental delays. You don't need a big diagnosis to obtain services and start making shifts, but you do need to recognize, right? There are usually sensory concerns. They're picky eaters, or they're afraid of the socks, the seams in their socks, or certain textures are very disorganizing. Maybe they're unable to regulate their emotions. Maybe they have frequent meltdowns and they're hard to soothe. Friends can also have difficulty with social engagement. That's children and adults with diagnoses or without, right? I'm going to treat those conditions as they're a reflection of the state of the brain and nervous system. And so those things, including speech and language, healing from unresolved trauma, improving cognitive function. That's one of our easiest and favorite things to do. Establishing or rebuilding executive function, memory, reading comprehension, and it's a cathartic, comprehensive input, which allows for us to make changes in all parts of the brain and the nervous system, which is why we can make improvements in all these different areas.
Well, I was happy to hear that it even had a huge impact on the gut and all kinds of
Yes.
gut related disorders. And of course, one of the hot topics in functional medicine is understanding the vagus nerve.
Yes.
There's whole entire summits and webinars and so on just on the vagus nerve.
Mm-hmm.
And so we have to talk about the vagus nerve. Like, for people that don't know what it is, what is it?
Yes.
And what does it do? It's a very long nerve. And as it goes through the body between the brain and the gut,
Mm-hmm.
it's hitting all these other, activating all these other organs. So can we just talk about that? Which is also, I think that helps explain why brain harmony works.
Yes. And it's the very first thing that we do when we're going in to heal a nervous system is we tap into the power of the vagus nerve to restore safety to the body. We tap into the anatomical innervation of that vagus nerve, which allows for us to make all of these changes in so many different parts of the body, including that generalized inflammation. We're able to decrease that by tapping into that vagus nerve. And here's how we do it. So the vagus nerve has a superior branch that innervates all of the muscles of the face. It innervates all of the oral motor muscles, including the vocal production cords. So anatomically, that's all of our social and our digestion and feeding and eating, a lot of sensory processing, all connected through that vagus nerve. It goes down and it innervates the heart and the lungs. And then an inferior branch innervates the bowel and bladder, the elimination organs. So we can actually tap into all of those pieces just by accessing the vagus nerve. And we love to access the vagus nerve through the auditory canal with different listening programs that use classical music with certain frequencies embedded in the music that is intended to exercise the muscles of the inner ear in such a way that it allows for the therapeutic features to pass through the tympanic membrane and reach the anatomical structure of the vagus nerve. So we feed that nerve soothing, organizing input, and that ripples all the way down the vagus nerve. It regulates heart rhythms. It gives you better breath regulation and control. And then what's been very exciting, especially for our friends with lots of chronic GI issues, SIBO, Crohn's, POTS, there's all kinds of different inflammatory GI conditions. Once a friend treats on a cellular level, like with your products and healing from any of the different viruses or what they can do there, coming to us or seeing the value of regulating the brain and nervous system in the healing of those GI issues has just been remarkable. We've actually have clients reporting to us a decrease of inflammation in their gut just by regulating the vagus nerve with the use of some of our listening programs. So it opens up the door to other opportunities to make shifts and changes for the brain and nervous system that are out of some of the, either conventional model, or you've tried some of these other additional interventions that have been helpful, but you need more, or you need longer shifts, or you've really hit a rough patch and you can't find your way out. This is where we can come in and use these different modalities to reach the anatomical structure of the vagus nerve and enhance parasympathetic. That's rest and digestion. If that's all we did is help you get better restorative sleep and help an individual better digest what they have, then you would see improvements across the board. But it's one piece of what we do. But it's missed so many times for friends who have chronic illnesses, is tapping into the power of vagal regulation and how it can open up the access for healing once we can restore safety to the body. Does that help you?
Yeah, it just makes me think of more things to ask and bring up. But so you mentioned the ear, the sound is going in, it's affecting the ear, and the ear is necessary. How about if someone has ear issues like tinnitus, or they're much older or even younger, they're already getting nerve damage and not hearing that well, or very many people have sinus conditions that are affecting their ear, like Marcon's, which is a big issue for people with mold, even if they have no idea they have a Marcon's infection. But those infections in the sinuses can affect your hearing. So does it so work if you have a hearing problem?
Well, there's hearing problems, and there's like congenital issues that are there, or through trauma, like you've mentioned, maybe someone has lost the hearing of certain frequencies. We're not going to restore any loss of hearing, but we absolutely can improve auditory processing. So processing that sound in multiple environments, better articulation, processing of phonetic decoding, very important to that ability to process from like a cognitive standpoint, but also making sure that the individual can process sound and it doesn't trigger a fight or flight response from the nervous system. So processing sound and hearing is part of our senses. So we consider that part of our sensory integration processing that will allow for the individual to function at a higher level. But we can absolutely improve auditory figure ground, where maybe in a restaurant with a lot of sound and TVs, it's hard for you to understand and speak to another person. We can help that individual be able to pull the words out that they need and better be able to communicate. So improvements in auditory processing, regulating, so there's not so many sound sensitivities as well, all very dysregulating input to the nervous system. But if our friends, depending upon, some friends can have some sinus issues, or little bitty friends can be prone to ear infections. If so, we modify our input. We have multiple mediums, multiple avenues to reach that vagus nerve. We can actually use under headphones. We can do over open speakers. We also have other modalities, like, for example, and you know this well, you're in the first phase of our program with the use of the alpha stem. And the alpha stem uses cranial electrical stimulation through ear clips on the earlobes, which again is right by, right, that anatomical structure of the vagus nerve and also the brain. So it produces the alpha waves that combat anxiety, insomnia, and depression. And it releases that into the brain. And here again, we love to use that as an accelerant to press the vagal brake and override that stress response, get you back to homeostasis, and then you can function, you can speak, you can problem solve, you can be creative, you can follow through and execute. But that very first step of pressing the vagal brake, restoring safety to the body through different mediums, allows for us to do that. And our friends are better able to heal when you have a better regulated autonomic nervous system.
Gosh, Ian, you say things that just get my brain thinking about more things to ask you. But so, obviously we all have gone through this big issue for a couple of years of dealing with a virus, which I'm not supposed to mention, otherwise we can't publish this podcast and on YouTube. So I won't say the word of the virus, but the spike protein is still present in the body. And a lot of people have become long haulers. They don't realize even that the spike protein is still in all these tissues all throughout the body, is still causing problems, making them, that's the cause of why people shed still, because it's still present. But as so we were all told that this spike protein entered the cell through the ACE2 receptor. But what the news didn't tell most everybody is that as it enters that cell, it damages that receptor. And those receptors are all over the body, particularly in the brain and the heart and the gut, kidneys and so on, and sexual organs. But so they're damaged now from this protein, spike protein, and it's still causing inflammation. And so naturally the immune system's really struggling. And we have all these long haulers, again, millions of them all over the world, more than we even know. But so to me, dealing with that has been very important. I've been kind of studying it for a couple of years. I had chronic fatigue quite badly for years and years and years. And so I think people with chronic fatigue are more likely to be victims of becoming a long hauler. And so, again, I started working on a book, and there's even a wonderful diet you should be on anytime you have a herpes outbreak. And that's the other thing the spike protein does. It's activated all these DNA viruses like Epstein-Barr and herpes, cytomegalovirus, and so on. They're alive. The yeast infections in your body are now active. And so you're dealing with a lot of, obviously, inflammation, but also you have to have a strong immune system to ultimately deal with all this and solve this problem. So I started looking, okay, I'm starting to use this alpha stem device. I'm really excited. Stress is my biggest problem. Also, if you ask me, what causes me to age, I would say stress. So if your goal is to age well, you got to have a tool for dealing with stress. So I was really excited with that part. But also what I noticed is I'm not somebody that tends to get depressed, mostly because I'm so busy. But if I'm under chronic stress for a really long, long, long time and I don't get a break, and I just also have a lot of these projects and they never seem to ever get done, so I have a sense of satisfaction, I'll get depressed. So not from other reasons, but literally chronic stress causes depression, and obviously you're full of anxiety. So that's super important. I love that about this program. But getting back to the immune system, I think there needs to be a lot of understanding about this tool for the immune system. And so if you have pathogens in your gut, whether you got this from the spike protein or just because you always have had pathogens, you've had a dysregulated gut and the wrong kind of microbes living there, they are secreting toxins, endotoxins, and that's affecting your immune system. Any kind of ongoing infection activates all these cytokines. And I think everybody knows that cytokines by this point are these inflammatory responses that the immune system secretes to bring these infections under control. But then it doesn't go down, and so it becomes chronic. And that's what is definitely going on with the long haulers and chronic fatigue and all these other conditions. So immediately started researching, how about the vagus nerve and the immune system? And wow, was I really surprised at all the important things that the role that the vagus nerve plays in controlling inflammation is absolutely 100% essential. That your vagus nerve is not stressed out, it is functioning, it is controlling inflammation. It's like probably the number one most important thing if you want to have a stronger immune system. So can you,
with the chronic vigilance and the hypervigilance that an individual can get stuck in with chronic illnesses, long hauling circumstances, chronic fatigue, we have beautiful outcomes because because we are prioritizing the vagus nerve, the nervous system, and first soothing and restoring safety there. And that has just been so remarkable and well received by so many with chronic illnesses, because if that's all we did, I mean, that in of itself is quite a gift, to be able to move that nervous system to a better restorative sleep, to parasympathetic. That's where the healing is involved in. I can enhance your parasympathetic, your ability to access that, and then your nervous system can live in that space for longer periods of time. So with chronic fatigue, we find our friends, you just get in this automatic pilot and you push through and you push through and you push through, because if you had to, lay down every time you didn't feel 100%, then you wouldn't get anywhere. So those friends, though, have nervous systems that are just fire, 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 and they don't get that restorative aspect yet. That's why our accelerants are so happy. That's why I ship them 2-day delivery to get to your home, because literally you can start using them. It overrides that response and you can start retraining it immediately. So absolutely beautiful, much needed aspect to the healing journey for chronic illnesses.
well, I'm going to put this in the show notes, because one of the important studies that I found that I think is simple enough for people to read and understand is a study that I'm just going to quote a couple of things from this study. It says, the communication between the immune system and the brain is vital for controlling inflammation. So that's the vagus nerve. That's the communication system between the immune system and the brain. And and of course, the vagus nerve is a major constituent of how well the immune system functions. But this is important. Vagus nerve stimulation, which is what you're doing, suppresses all these inflammatory cytokines. And they, for example, TNF alpha, interleukin 6, and C-reactive protein, all of them are and they're all, causing this terrible inflammation. So you literally can't get well. It's chronic and ongoing. And even the gut microbes are pathogenic, what the cytokines they're stimulating in the gut, all of that is being addressed when you stimulate the nervous system, the vagus nerve, which is what you're doing.
And with multiple mediums and multiple avenues. And everyone is just so welcoming to an alternative medium to accomplish this with. And so what I mean by that is we use sound. We even have vibration in some cases. We use alpha waves. We also can walk a client through better regulating of that vagus nerve by breaking apart primitive retained reflex patterns as well. So that's an additional vagal regulating process that further, improves the inflammation. One of those reflexes that we start with is called the startle reflex. So if you have a strong startle, if you remember when you had a little baby and maybe put them down on the bed, someone dropped something, the whole body would startle. Well, that you can get stuck in that. And then with all of these additional layers, then the body just stays in a startle. So it's not balanced and it's not accessing parasympathetic like it's intended to. But that's what's so beautiful of these different mediums is we can layer in multiple mediums. We'll use a sound, we'll use a little alpha waves, we'll do a little reflex work. Now you have 3 different mediums in its total focus in reaching the vagus nerve as that initial anatomical structure to retrain and make these types of changes. And we're just tapping into what is expected to be there. We're all supposed to have this ability. It's all intended to be there, but for whatever reason, it could be blunted, it can be traumatized, it can be, you can find yourself stuck. And then over time, if you stay in that dysfunctional loop, that's what's imprinted in the brain and the nervous system. The dysfunctional response, just from doing it over and over, is where a friend thinks that maybe this is all that life is. This is just where I am. But we had this beautiful woman, she's 73 in our program. And I called her after she had started a few weeks and I said, how are you doing? And she said, you're not going to believe this. I'm 73 years old and I can't believe now is the first time that I'm feeling this. And she said, but I'm in the same circumstance at work. I'm working with the same people, but I'm different. So a stressful circumstance would come up at work. And instead of it overwhelming her nervous system, causing a series of, her responses, their responses, this whole full body response that she's trying to control her emotions and her body and her breath rate. Instead, she says she has like this accelerated maturity and objectivity. So the same circumstance is going by her, but she's not getting sucked into it. She's just able to observe and to think and to be creative and problem solve and then just provide, the solution. And there went the circumstance. And she said, I thought, that was just a luxury item for people other than me my entire life. I'm 73 and I've never had that emotional regulation and control until now. And so how did we do that? We provided accelerated maturation for her brain and nervous system using these different mediums. Whichever mediums and whichever formulas will be the best at resetting the individual's nervous system and their responses. It's just it's joyful work, right? I mean, how glorious that is to bring those skills and awaken those skills for her. We do it also with children, teenagers, parents, grandparents. The brain doesn't know how old it is. It only knows how to change based upon the input that it's given. So we can give it, we've got the best to feed it. And that's how we're able to make such change in such a short period of time.
Well, I'm really glad you said that because, there's 70 million baby boomers in the U.S. And starting since 1946 to 1964, that's a huge generation. And we're all getting older, obviously, 70s and 80s. The thing is that as you get older, you are really supposed to become more of a asset to society, but even especially to your family.
Yes.
And and that's one of the good things about getting older is you have much more wisdom. You've made plenty of mistakes and you learn from them, but now you want to be able to pass those on and help the younger generations that care about. And so our older people are this older generation, they're still getting older, but they are like, depressed and anxious, and they're not really able to focus and help the younger generations, which honestly is why we're still here, because we don't reproduce anymore. And so I'm very glad you said that. I hope people that are older hear that. We know from the news and magazine articles and everything that there's an enormous generation of teenagers, so depressed. They don't even want to live, committing
Mm-hmm.
suicide, and they're drawn to drugs
Mm-hmm.
to because they don't care.
Mm-hmm.
And that's another really important group to do this,
Mm-hmm.
that should be doing this. So
Mm-hmm.
we could talk about that, but I think everybody knows that's obvious. But let's talk about addiction because,
Mm-hmm.
I think the human body is wired to be addicted. If it's not to alcohol or drugs or something, it can be shopping. It can
Mm-hmm.
be,
A
like
computer
doing,
screen.
well, yeah, exactly, or video games for kids and
Right.
all. But when the virus came and people were stuck in their homes,
Mm-hmm.
Amazon, they couldn't get out obviously to get all the things they wanted, but also sales went up enormously because there's nothing to do but shop. And you think, oh, I
Mm-hmm.
need this. I'm
Mm-hmm.
going to get this on Amazon. And so people got tons of boxes. I even wondered how much it contributed to our environment. All these boxes that things are packed into.
Mm-hmm.
Too, it's been such a bad thing. But addiction. We are addicted
Mm-hmm.
to so many things. We're supposed to go to bed early, but we can't help it because we can't get into bed early because we start watching this series on TV, and it gets to the end, and of course it's set up to make you want to watch the next
Yes, it
episode.
just
The
rolls
next thing
right
you know,
into
it's
it.
2:30 in the morning, and you look
Right.
down, especially if it's a cortisol stimulating um, series. Then I'm
Mm-hmm.
wired like crazy. Your blood sugar will go up, you start gaining
Mm-hmm.
weight. I mean, it's just stress, and and addiction. So, and also I've asked people that are addicted, including people I love or even members of my family, why are you addicted to, say, alcohol? Well, first of all, they're more comfortable in a social situation. Like they go to a party and all these people around who seem so charming, but they don't feel so charming, So if they have a little alcohol, okay, now they're relaxed, that other side of themselves can come out, be more fun. They can also take oxytocin before they go to a party. That does the same thing. But, I think that there's different reasons why. And number one is that we have all this anxiety and, it calms down our nervous system. So why don't I? Okay, the other thing I want to say to everybody at this point, they're thinking, I really need one of these. And
Mm-hmm.
instead of these other 6 people in my family, two things I'm so impressed about and want to say is the incredible affordability of this. I thought it was going to be $2,000
Mm-hmm.
minimum just to get the equipment, and then each person gets their own therapist, which is amazing. And
Mm-hmm.
then if you once you get the equipment, like I have mine now, well, 3 other people in the family can also use it every day, and for the same price. Then I thought, wow, this is like these are this is somebody who really cares and really wants to get people well, and they're not charging a fortune to do it. Can
Well,
you
yeah.
address that? Because I don't want people to turn off right now because they think, oh my gosh, I can't afford this.
Right, right. Well, first, once we started to figure out what we were doing for everyone and how it was, people weren't seeing these types of changes across the globe, actually, then it was about, okay, we know what to do. How do we give our friends access to us, to the protocols, to the best interventions? And so that's why that's what Brain Harmony was created, to fill that void. We are also parents, right? And so we have our chronic medical circumstances of the children nowadays, and it is so dysregulating to the entire family unit, everybody's purpose in life, right? It's all drawn together. And what we found is that by shipping this equipment, usually for that one family member, once we get them started, why not share it with other family members? Because then what happens is each individual begins to feel and function better, which if that's all we did, that's going to make everybody feel better. But when the whole family is doing it, it resets a new rhythm for that family. You get to drop some of that disorganization of the sensory system, past traumas, some of the getting stuck in that sympathetic response. By resetting it in each individual, it opens up the family's opportunity to then function at a higher level, a more efficient kind with a family and communication that you dreamed about when you were thinking about having children and a family, right? Having beautiful relationships, good communication, being able to help each other find their purpose of why they are on this earth, the chronic illnesses, the different, the different pandemics or different viruses. Those are all different factors that can dysregulate us, and keep us off track from the purpose of why we're here. And so by doing and extending it to the family member, it's really been something that no other program is able to provide, because who can treat an entire family of four, and with really low, cost effective monthly rates. We can start at $300 a month for a family of four. We can add on different modalities, and that might change your cost a little bit. But making sure that friends could afford to access us was just as important as the protocols themselves. When I had the clinic model, everybody was trying to get to me, and we thought that was the way to go. Let's open up more clinics, and you're at 3 or 4, and but you still can't get to everybody, and that's not. It wasn't bridging the gap between outcomes and accessibility to care by opening up more clinics. Instead, by absorbing those protocols into telehealth and then setting up little mini clinics in all the different homes, and we train the individual or the caregiver on how to use these protocols in their home, like the clinic model. That's just been a huge accelerant to healing, is the modalities, the therapists, the order in which we do it, but that also it's in your home. You can get input daily if needed. You can get input multiple times a day. It's a lovely thing to do for the nervous system. You have these tools. Why not soothe and shower the input of the sensory system with these modalities? It's a wonderful opportunity.
Well, if your opportunity, time to do a session is in the morning or in the afternoon, and then it's time to go to bed, is it having an effect at bedtime, or is it better to do the program at bedtime?
It's a great question, and it absolutely can have compounding effects. And essentially, that's why we assign you with a licensed therapist. She will specially guide you through to adjust the input from the modalities to meet your custom neurological needs. So, for example, we can use the alpha stim at nighttime at certain levels to help an individual fall asleep. That happens for a lot of individuals, about 80%. There's a small percentage of friends, though, that if they do the alpha stim a little too close to sleeping time, they feel so good that their body doesn't want to tap out to go to sleep. They are like, wait, I finally feel good, so it's a little more awake. So we'll help you adjust it. Maybe you do your alpha stim at 4 o'clock in the evening, and maybe even first thing in the morning. So we will help you place the timing, the duration, the intensity level of your different mediums into your everyday to be that further accelerants of re-imprinting the trend that you want to create.
So the last time I did the alpha stim, I decided to, because I have a back injury, so I sat in front of my Juve light and did it at the same time. In other words, you can.
You're a multitasker.
Yeah, exactly. That was great. I thought, oh, wait, this is a good thing to do.
Yes.
Now, when I'm sitting in front of this Juve just sitting there, so that was exciting. So is it damaged? What if someone took it into the sauna? Would it be damaged by water?
Yeah, well, I'm not sure I'd take it in the sauna. There's really only a few places I would probably stay away with water, and driving in a vehicle. Like if you are the driver, I would avoid alpha stim. But you can definitely use it while you're working at the computer screen, while you're cooking in the kitchen. By the time I have to cook dinner at nighttime, I'm spent. My creative juices, right? I've done everything I could during my working hours, and then dinner comes along and it's just like it can be a train wreck, and I'm just struggling to push through it. I don the alpha stim clips to put the device in my pocket, and now I've dropped all that static of dinner, and now I'm just soothed, awakened, and now I'm just creative. And so it's just a wonderful way to use these in everyday experiences to make that more of a therapeutic and a functional re-imprint on the nervous system.
You just reminded me of something too, and I want everybody to know it doesn't have to be plugged in. It's portable.
Yes.
It can be on you.
Uh-huh.
And I have to go to Japan in early part of the year.
Great for
And
travel.
it's a really, really, really long trip. And I'm worried I don't want to arrive there on the wrong time zone and have to get up to go to these meetings and things. And I'm too tired. And I
Yes.
come back from it's only 5 or 6 days. I come back more exhausted than ever. So, I'm supposed to sign up for it, but I'm hesitating because, like, can I do the physical part of it that's involved in this? But I just realized as you were talking, like, this is perfect. I'll actually be able to sleep a nice long sleep. Like I noticed when I go to Australia, those planes take off at night. So you go an hour or two after you get on, you go to sleep. Watch a movie, you go to sleep. And when you wake up, you're an hour or two, you're there already. And so you don't really have jet lag. And so this is very exciting to hear this from me or
Yes.
anybody else traveling,
Yes,
like to
take it
Europe.
with you. Don't leave it at home. Dear goodness, that would be so sad. What an asset to bring with you, because just like you said, when you're traveling, you don't have control of much. It's just happening to you, right? So you're making all your travel plans and your hotel and your transportation, but those things change, and you're going to need to be able to adapt and change with them. That takes a lot of energy, especially if we already have these other layers. But by having these accelerants with us, you have someone to support you. You have this that you can override and really keep the nervous system where you want it to go, when you want it to go, whether it's through time zone changes, whether it's a new grandbaby at the house, or, a colicky child or a difficult sensory child. Sleep deprivation is sometimes just part of your everyday. But even then, because I know those circumstances so well. If I don the alpha sim, I still have to function. I still have to go to work. I still have to go to the grocery store. I still need to care for my children and my family. But I'm so tired and my eyes hurt and I can't find my words, and I'm really just on like automatic pilot. Don the alpha stem. It softens the edges. It allows for you to still be able to function even though your nervous system is dysregulated. That's what those listening programs do over time as well. And we haven't gotten into those for you yet, Donna, but that's how we use a listening medium to further as another avenue to reset and make resilient. And it's so helpful for, especially when you're traveling, and tightening up that multi-sensory processing. So valuable. You mightn't even understand or know that it's that much of a problem for you until you feel better. And then you're like, wow, I didn't realize how disorganized or how sensitive I was to sounds, how sensitive I was to touch, how dysregulated my sleep and wake cycle is. Also, very important that we've learned is with anxiety, is we're finding the trend is our friends have very weakened balance or vestibular systems. So maybe what they used to drive in a car, but now when they go over bridges and they don't feel very secure when they're just driving in the car anymore. We're getting a lot of that from our females. So then we go in and we use our protocols. We talk about the brain and the nervous system. We are also going to assess the vestibular system or sense of balance, because what happens is when that is weak, it's going to make everybody very sensitive to movement and in a car, and it can make you feel really noxious, and it can be just right under the surface. So you're not cognizant that it's a balance or vestibular thing, but you are cognizant that you're not feeling right and you're not yourself. So we have this beautiful vestibular lesson plan. It's a neurological lesson plan that your therapist will ensure that we have tightened up any holes in that could further be contributing to the anxiety. Our friends with poor sensory processing and lots of sensitivities, of course you're going to have heightened anxiety because everything's coming at you so disorganized. It, of course, can result in depression and lack of ability to execute and follow through because you can't get your body and brain to do what you want it to do when you want to do it. So you can see how those trends can develop, but but you can also see the opportunity that we have to go in and reset and rewire.
So again, with long haulers, they do have an issue with POTS. So when they get up and get down, they become dizzy and they lose their sense of balance and their blood pressure is dysregulated. So it would be good for them. But I was also thinking about people as they age. A big fear becomes your muscles are not as there, and then your bones are more fragile, and so falling becomes a serious concern. Losing your balance and falling. So that's really good to know for that too. I mean, I keep thinking of all these amazing ways it's helping. But just getting back to babies, you wouldn't give, let's say the baby comes in to the world it's all new. They were all cozy and comfortable, and now they're out in this bright world with lots of noises and overstimulated, and say want them to sleep on a regular sleep schedule. I think that's a very high priority for parents in the beginning. But the baby sleeps 15 minutes and he's already awake again, and he's all grumpy, and he goes back to sleep, and then he's waking again. The poor parents. I hear this constantly. My neighbors have babies. I have new babies in our family, and the sleep deprivation is so hard. So could you use this on the baby? I actually found a homeopathic that works really well for sleep for babies and children.
Oh, that's
But
good.
this sounds cool.
Yes, for sure. So
What would you do for, yeah.
Our little bitty babies, we're not going to go so direct in our listening programs under the headphones. We're going to disperse some of that input. We have these different pads that a baby can lay on that has the vibration in it. So you send the therapeutic frequencies through a pad that they're laying on. And so then that is sent to the whole body instead of consolidating, especially under headphones. Because for a little bitty, right, those little tiny, 3 muscles are even tinier. The eustachian tubes are super tiny. So we don't want to do too much input. So we disperse it through the rest of the body. Now we do with the headphones and vibration as young as 18 months of age, which has been remarkable. How beautiful. If you're noticing delays of any kind, you don't have to stress out with a formal diagnosis. Just come in and get neurological organization. Just look at the developmental delays. And if it's hanging heavy on your heart and you know something's just not right, absolutely reach out as early as then, and we can absolutely accelerate that process. But yes, and some of those sleep concerns, a lot of the families are noticing if they turn off their modems at nighttime, turn off the Wi-Fi, you can also positively impact that and protect that space from 10 p.m. to 4 a.m. at least. That can help. And then, of course, getting in a nice, well-regulated pattern. But when the little baby becomes the dysregulating, hurricane, the parents could really benefit from something that overrides that state that they can't control. They can't control the little nervous system of their child yet, but they can control their own to be more resilient. Then that allows for them to better be able to structure the child's day. They understand how they can impact the sleep-wake cycle by choosing things in a certain order, choosing foods in a certain order, choosing activities and times of day that will help that child be more self-sustainable with a regular sleep-wake cycle. But absolutely, our friends need some support and help, and these are we guided friends through the pandemic, and we have clients and families and individuals who came out of that time with more organization than when they went in, which can sound kind of hard to believe given all of the trauma and suffering that everybody was under. And we were serving clients across the globe. So, I mean, we have our finger on the pulse that was happening to everyone, and how the different governments were responding and what they could do and what they couldn't. It was really quite a remarkable time. And through that, we won some awards because of how we were able to care for so many and make such cathartic change. But the ones who had access to our perspective, our training, and had some of our devices, they made it through that time. They maneuvered instead of just being a victim and being taken over. They had definitely more resilience and empowerment, and that makes us incredibly happy.
How about if you have a pet with a tremendous amount of anxiety, or even they're getting older and they maybe even have physical things going wrong? Like, just let's talk about brain harmony and pets, and not just pets like little our dog and cat,
Mhm.
but even bigger animals like a horse.
Mhm. Well, and so I'm so glad you brought it up because we get these modalities and they're in the home setting. Of course, after everybody in your family starts feeling and functioning better, you look at your dog on the floor and you're like, huh, I wonder, anatomically, we have a lot of similarities as animals.
Mhm.
So could we tap into the vagus nerve of the dog? And so I will send you a picture of, I have a dog that I didn't know was going to grow to be so big. So he's like a little miniature horse. He is a very anxious dog. And I have a picture of him using the alpha stem, writing, clipped him on his little ears, and he's asleep on a little, squishy bed. So of course we tap into the anatomical structures, and can use the alpha stem, but we also use the Safe and Sound protocol, which is one of the listening programs that we use. Dr. Porges created that one, and he actually there's a patented waveform, but he also has a patent for using the therapeutic music with canines specifically,
Mm.
because of the anatomical structure. So for anxious dogs, actually Lee, one of the therapists, and I were actually thinking about doing a before and after quiz for, the animals to get their concerns and then do the listening program and then rate it after. We haven't gotten that formal with it, but absolutely, we've been sharing and spreading it, because why not? And because we can.
Well, do they mind having a little clip in their ear?
Well, a little. I mean, it takes a little finessing, but for this was a big dog and didn't seem to mind it. Having they have bigger, larger ears, and they were just clipped right there. So, and even little, real sensitive little bitties. I have little bitty friends that are 2 years of age. We just have creative ways and modifications, to be able to give these different mediums to the different beings that could
Mhm.
use the
Well,
benefit from them.
for the Safe and Sound protocol, which is all these different this theme, like kind of, well, I can maybe you should
Frequencies
explain what it is.
embedded into the
They
music.
don't need the clip for that, right?
No, no, that comes through. It's a listening program. You can use headphones, that
Mm-hmm.
encompass the ear, not earbuds, and we will deliver and impact your vagus nerve and brain with that listening program. So headphones are good, but then for some people who are really sensitive, or for some of the canines or the animals, we release that program over open air, so over regular speakers, and they still receive therapeutic value. I remember when we tried
Mm-hmm.
it, with an individual who was just a very, very sensitive. She was sensitive to everything. And we kept modifying and modifying, and we went to open air, and we were not expecting. We thought it would just be, something for her to tolerate. And then we could slowly in smaller increments move her then to under the headphones to get more therapeutic value. But what we found is even over open air in rooms, the therapeutic value embedded into the sound frequencies still makes an impact on the ear, the brain, and the vagus nerve. So we can modify and adjust all the different protocols to meet whatever the needs are of the individual or the being who's doing the therapy.
Great. Not cats. Like if anyone has a little kitten or cat, can they? Does it?
I would think that the cats would be a little finicky for the ear clips, but I definitely over open air, the listening programs would be perfect for cats.
Yeah, because I wouldn't say that they're depressed or have anxiety. At least I don't know any that are. None of my neighbors have cats like that, but they're very cautious. So I'm
Mhm.
guessing if they're super cautious, they've got to have a lot of anxiety too. So they could
Yep,
listen to the anxiety programs. Well, Carol, thank you for that too. Thank.
absolutely.
Well, I do want to stress that why I think this is amazingly affordable is that a therapist comes along with a program to help you use it properly and to know which one to use
Mhm.
and to adjust it. And, let's say you do have a new baby, well, you need to know how to use it.
Mm-hmm.
for yourself and for the baby. So that's amazing that you provide a therapist.
Yes.
It's, how do people, Carol, how did all these people find you? Like, I didn't hear about you until my friend, a longtime good friend, said, you should listen to some of these webinars that Carol has done, and you should have her on your podcast. And I thought, I don't know, there's lots of brain programs, but I'm so glad that we connected after all. So how would people normally even hear about you?
And that's really what we hear most from everyone is, I wish I would have found you earlier. But most of our friends find us through word of mouth still. They find us, do podcasts, and we do interviews and webinars. I have a new digital health course that's coming out, and we release it to the internet. We communicate, we get with groups and other moms, but what happens is once someone witnesses the change of being in our program, then they want it for themselves, or they want it for their own child. We had a friend, like even Wellness Mama. I happened to be,
Oh,
she
yeah,
moved
Katie.
into, she moved into my zip code, and I happened to be
Mm-hmm.
treating several individuals that lived in her neighborhood. So she witnessed the cathartic change of these children, and she grabbed one of the moms and was like, what happened? What's happening with your child? She's not fearful of me. She's not hiding behind you. She's trying new foods at my house. She started to talk to me, and now she's playing with the dog. And the moms were telling her, like, hey, we're doing brain harmony. They focus on the brain and the nervous system. And she cold called me and said, hey, I'd love to do a podcast. And then that's how we got a lot of our international clients. That's how a lot of people found us from all parts of the globe. And it's just so wonderful. So we just keep spreading the information. And that's why, again, I'm so glad to connect with your listeners, because, and I love sharing with my listeners and the people who work with me about your products, about that cellular healing, the product of your probiotic, the vanilla shake it's been remarkable. I can get all of my, sensory defensive picky eaters, to incorporate it into to their shakes. So not only is it there, but they can access it. It is beneficial. We love that bunch of different ways. So when you pair the cellular treatment and then can come in with these different mediums, it really just makes a lot of sense.
You
Now,
do have to have a healthy functioning gut and then
yes,
stimulate
yes,
it too. Well,
yes,
and thank you for mentioning our products. I know you said that you like the probiotic liquids too. Just a little bit
yes.
of that is the fantastic probiotic made by nature, not by human beings.
It's wonderful.
So,
And the coconut water, right?
fermented
Mm-hmm.
coconut water has always had a huge role in helping children that are very picky, difficult to get them
Yes.
started. They just take the fermented coconut water. It's got to be fermented, otherwise it's loaded with sugar. And it just has had extraordinary benefits all over the world, to Hong Kong, everywhere people are
Yes.
doing it. But Carol, what I wanted to know, because I thought we kind of maybe didn't go into, say, teenagers, at a young age, kids do start smoking pot. And since it's considered okay, in a lot of states, it's legal, Colorado being the first, but many more states have
Mm-hmm.
legalized it. So super easy to get. I was just came back from LA, and literally there was a store every second or third block
Mm-hmm.
over in the valley where I was. And I thought, gosh, it's so easy, but I just can't get out of my mind what Daniel Amen, who's a expert on the brain, and he has all these SPECT scans of, young adults who've been smoking pot for a long, long time, and the holes it leaves in the brain, literally holes,
Mm-hmm.
which on his program,
Mm-hmm.
within a year or so, he'll do the SPECT scan again, and then the holes are filled in. Of
Yes.
course, the person's behaviors change.
Yeah.
Will this do that? Will this,
Yes.
I mean, he thinks diet's extremely important too. They
Of
don't
course.
just one thing, but he can fill those holes back in. And so I didn't understand when they were trying to decide, should we legalize pot or not, why they never brought up his work. It's clear that it creates holes in the brain, and that will affect your behavior, your decision making, everything. So
Yes.
can you explain how that could be also a really good thing to do,
Yes.
the brain
Yes.
harmony?
And thank you for bringing that up. And the addiction trends, like you said, it can be chemical, it can be screens, the dopamines that the software creates in the brain forces you to look back at it. So there's all of these different forces, external factors that are pulling us out, or that we are seeking these external factors to make our insides feel better. You know, you can try alcohol, the weed is everywhere, even the vaping as well. I took a course on that. There's so many chemicals in there, just like, psychoactive, serotonin, all kinds of different things in there. It's really quite problematic. But what's so exciting is, again, the brain only knows how to change based upon the input that it's given. So if you're feeding the brain those types of things and you have the holes, we can still make significant gains. The best way to explain that is, I had a mom who became an addict, and she was pregnant while she was still using. And she had the baby, and then she got clean, which is wonderful. So she's feeling and functioning better. But here's her child who is not developing. And it's so fabulous, Donna, that you said the holes in the brain, is because when I'm speaking to him, it's just like when you see maybe someone who has been a chronic alcoholic, a drug user. Maybe if you encounter a homeless person with those characteristics, they're talking, but it's with these holes in it. So it's like you can just barely get, you understand where they're going, but then the whole point, there's just a big hole and little pieces around it. And the boy was only 7, but this is how he talked. He talked like he had a brain with the holes in it from chronic, drug use. So I didn't know what to do. That was early on, but I said, well, let's see what we can do. But absolutely, based upon the neuroplasticity of the brain, we just kept using our different modalities. We first rebuilt the sensory system, and we filled the holes with neuron connections in the brain. We have certain folders to build certain skills, and so we built it for him. So then he could speak and articulate and complete sentences and complete ideas. He could better regulate his nervous system and his body. And so he didn't have to seek external factors to change that state, which mom was worried about, his predisposition to using substances as well. But literally, that's why people respond so well, is that you're retraining the entire brain and nervous system's response so that they won't need those external pieces to try and change their state. So I'm so glad you bring up the addiction, because it's pervasive, it's around, it's built there, it's intended to make everyone come back for more, to stay in that cycle, to spend their money with certain entities in order to keep you in that negative state. I can't function in that state. I had the big clinic model. I did what I thought I was trained to do. We did a lot of good work. But I had to break from that and look at everything that I could to make the changes and step out of those restrictive patterns that you can get stuck in the medical model, and especially with addiction.
I just want to add to Carol that even in the womb, when a mother eats a lot of sugar, there's a lot of research showing then the baby's going to eat sugar. And then as they get older, they will have an addictive brain. They'll want more than just sugar. They'll want alcohol, so on. And so you reminded me of the title of one of Daniel Amen's book, Change Your Brain, Change Your Life. I'd go beyond that and say, change your brain, change your life, and change the world. So just imagine if people started, really, they knew there was a tool like this that existed. They realized their children were needing some support, because honestly, it's a rare child today that doesn't. They're
Yes.
paying the consequences of
Yes.
decades, like generations of us eating badly under a lot of stress, all the toxins in the world. This generation coming in now is paying the consequences of all that. And that's why you have serious problems. As you know, we talked about this earlier, Beth Lambert in her work, her book,
Yes.
explaining what's happening to our kids and everything
Yes.
is great. But has, in fact, we both love her work. But
Yes.
you have a tool, and a really, really important tool. So,
Hmm.
I majored in first I wanted to be a dietitian, then I went to work in a hospital and hated it there.
Yeah.
Like the environment was wrong for me. And I was engaged with my fiance had to go to Vietnam for a while. And so I just kept going to college, and I ended up graduating with a degree in child development because I always had this really strong sense. This is way, way back in 68, that our kids were going to really be in trouble someday. Well, they
Yes.
are. And
Yes.
here you have a tool. So you
Hmm.
can change your brain,
Hmm.
which will change your life, but we can literally change our children, an entire generation, and change and save the world. So I so am grateful for you and to my friend for telling me about you, but just for the work you've done. I mean, I feel like it's divinely guided in many ways at a time we need it. So how can people find out about your work? And I just want to stress too that it isn't just a program; it's a program with a therapist. A
Yes.
therapist alone will cost you 150,
Yes.
250, $350. You can get the program for that.
Yes.
So it's just a gift to the world, Carol. So how can people find you?
So, brainharmony.com is a wonderful resource for all individuals. You will see a pop up quiz come up for you. And if you want to complete that for yourself or for your family member, it'll give you a couple of neurological questions. And you answer those. And on the results page, it'll tell you about your nervous system, and it'll allow for you to schedule a consult with me directly on my schedule. I will call you at that date and time that you choose. We'll review your neurological indicators, and then I'll lay out your treatment options. And that's essentially how friends can start in their own program. I hope that you click on our testimonies on the conditions page. You'll be amazed at the range of all kinds of different conditions that we treat, but also to see the video testimonies from individuals, because regardless of even how well I explain it or how excited I am, some people, they're just like, that almost might be too hard to believe. And people tell me that all the time. I'm like, okay, just do the program or watch this video, and they will show you how and what is possible. So I so appreciate this opportunity to share it with more people. We love relieving suffering. And I'm just so thankful to you, Donna.
Well, thank you, Carol. And I'd like to say to everybody listening, please share this. I am positive there's somebody in your world that needs this information and needs the program. So thank you very much. And please, I'll see you for the next Body Ecology Living podcast.